So my book is called Saving Nate, Choosing Life After a Devastating Prenatal Diagnosis. And I chose that name because the Lord did an amazing work. You know, he saved our son. We'd been married for a few years, and we definitely wanted to start a family. And so when the time came, we weren't able to get pregnant right away. So we did experience some infertility. So we decided to try a fertility treatment, not IVF, just something that couples often try first before pursuing other things. They told us that with this treatment, there was about a 13% chance of getting pregnant. And the chance of multiples was quite low, about 1 to 2%. After the second try, we found out that we were expecting, so we were extremely excited, and found out at the first ultrasound that we were in fact having twins.
I was shocked, and Kristen started laughing hysterically.
He was quiet for a good few minutes. We had all these questions like, do we need a bigger house? Do we need a minivan? And does Mauricio need a different job, you know? And we found out that we were having a little boy and a little girl. And so, of course, we were thrilled. But at the end of that ultrasound, the tech, she said, okay, I'm going to ask a doctor to come in and speak with you. We weren't expecting anything. So no. He came in and he told us that our little boy, they had discovered that he had something called congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And so I think that week leading up to the second ultrasound appointment, I was feeling very, I wasn't worried. I didn't do any research on the condition. I just thought, well, you know what, we'll just pray and ask God to heal our baby, and I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Let's bring this before God, and then we share with our families, ask them to pray for it. But in reality, we had no idea what we were, coming up against.
So the following week, we went to this other clinic, and I had a 2-hour-long ultrasound. So she told us that our little boy had a very large hole in his diaphragm muscle, which is what separates the lower abdominal organs from the chest cavity. And so this hole was so large that a lot of his intestines and part of his liver had migrated up into his chest. And what that did was it shifted everything over to the left a bit, and it greatly impeded the growth of his lungs. And so his right lung was almost non-existent. It was tiny. And then the left lung was just 27% the size of a regular sized lung. And based on the size of that left lung, they were able to give us sort of his, odds of survival. So they told us he had an approximately closer to a 25% chance of survival. Given the severity of this diagnosis or this condition, you may want to consider having a reduction. And so for me, I just sat there and I was very confused. I had just received this onslaught of information, and it's the first I was hearing about this condition and just everything. And then she's suggesting we have a reduction. I'm like, what?
And I answered to her. I said, I know you were talking about abortion, and just so you know, we are. For us, life is sacred. We are for life. We are people that value life and believe in life. So this is not an option for us.
Even though abortion wasn't an option, we didn't know what the outcome of our story was going to be, the outcome of this pregnancy. We knew our son would be born, but was he going to survive? And in that, that first week, I was overcome with sadness. I thought, okay, our he's not going to make it. I mean, and that was heartbreaking. We left the clinic that day after the diagnosis, and we just, in the car, we spent some time in prayer. Then we went to Tim Hortons, got a coffee, and I remember sitting there, and we were I was trying not to cry, just holding back the tears. And so I did feel very hopeless in that moment. We did meet with a surgeon at the Children's Hospital a week or two after that initial appointment at the clinic for high risk pregnancies. So we did find out information about what his treatment was going to look like after he was born, if he made it to that 38-week point. But even after that appointment with the surgeon, we did receive all the pushback from the doctors at the other clinic. So I can say before he was born, the doctors were not in favor of him receiving treatment. But everyone we met at the hospital was incredible. They were just amazing. And they had his back. And I'm very thankful for everyone who was there.
And that was the part for me personally that was extremely hard, because we are dealing with doctors, people who actually vow to protect and save lives, right? That they have the expertise, the knowledge, and all of that to actually do that, but they were the very people that were, removing the hope. All we ask you guys to do is give your best. Just put your best. Don't withhold anything. Don't hold back any resources. Don't do anything. You put your best, and we will trust our God that He will do His best. If God wants our son to survive, He will. If He doesn't, we will trust Him anyway. And quite honestly, we said those things, but I don't think at that time we were fully aware yet, what we were really getting into, because the picture that is painted for you, like the overall picture that is given to you, it is a scary one. It is a picture that is overly emphasized, all the fear, all the negative, all the horrible potential ramifications. But that's the key word, because there are potential ramifications. Of course, there is science behind. Of course, there is a lot of experience and studies and data and all of that to support those things. But yet, the problem is this: the moment that we put ourselves in God's seat, we cannot bear the load of carrying that kind of a responsibility and decision.
I don't want to seem like, I'm some super Christian or better than anyone. And I would just want to speak just to those who maybe have had an abortion, especially in this kind of situation where you've received this hopeless prenatal diagnosis and the doctors have given you nothing but fear and no hope. I just wanted to say, you made the best choice you knew how to make in the circumstances that you were in. And I would just say, the Lord still is there. He still loves you. He's still good. If you're struggling with the weight of that decision, and it's very common to feel maybe guilt or shame or trauma, bring it to God. God is there. He wants to set you free and just bring you forgiveness and wholeness and healing. So there's always hope. There's always hope.
I don't know what's going to happen, whether Nate will survive or not. I don't know. But one thing I know, that God's going to heal him, whether in this life or the next. And He will allow us one day to be with Him. And we needed to hold fast to that truth. The cross of Christ, His cross, is the statement, is the shout of God saying that I care. That you may not have all the answers that you're looking for, but Christ died on that cross, taking upon Him not only our judgment, but taking upon Him all of the pain and all of the guilt, all of the shame, all of the fear, all of that we experience. He took upon Himself and saying, I am taking this so that you don't have to. So that for me is a great statement that we have a God who cares, a God who entered into this world to suffer and empathize with us. God doesn't stand outside of suffering, tapping us on the back, cheering us on and say, hey, go, keep going. No, He came and He knew suffering.
Nate, he was born first. It was actually a regular birth. It didn't need a C-section. And so when he was born, he came out with one big cry, one loud cry, and then all the oxygen he received from me, he used up, and that's when his fight for life started. So they immediately brought him over to a bed in the OR, and the NICU team started. They intubated him, and then spent almost an hour just connecting all the different tubes and lines and everything he needed before bringing him off to the NICU. And then Emma was born second, and she came out just super healthy. And so thankfully Mao was there. He got to be with Nate, and then I was with Emma, and the doctors so many times they told us he did better than expected, right? This little thing, he did better than expected. And we saw God bring this little boy who was so fragile, to this place of health. I remember just a couple days after we got home, he was sitting in his little infant chair, and Thomas, who was 3 years old at the time, who's always had tons of energy, was dancing a very exuberant, joyful dance in front of Nate. And Nate was laughing, like this belly laugh, this tiny, scrawny guy, belly laugh. And, the doctors had told us that they wanted him to come home because once babies come home, they usually thrive.
But he's a great kid. He's full of energy, and the irony that I pray and I joke is that wouldn't that be amazing one day that this little guy who didn't have a lung to go and live his life to proclaim, to sing and to proclaim the greatness of this God with the power of the voice, the lung that God gave him. Right? And this is our prayer, like that God will use this for his glory. Mm-hmm. And I know that if he does that, it will be the best thing for Nate's life. Mm-hmm. For those who have, how many did you have? Two. Two? Yeah.